pattern I see so often in my line of work that it's just stopped surprising me at this point. So someone can come in to see me. They have had no dramatic injuries. They have no surgeries, no accidents. They have just been living and living their life, right? So they're working, commuting to work, sitting long periods of time at work, managing everything that modern life entails and asks of them. And at some point, without them even realizing it, that their posture starts to change. They start to feel like their body's working against them. They're stiff in the morning. They get tight hips, lower back complaints after long periods of sitting. Their shoulders start to creep forward so gradually that they can start to notice these things in their photos. And when I ask them what has changed, almost everyone has the same response. And it's, I don't know, typically. I didn't do anything differently than this the regular routine. They're just like, I just started feeling this way. And that answer is more accurate than most people realize because in most cases, they didn't do anything. The environment did. There's a story I picked up along my journey that I think about a lot in this line of work. And there's this idea in biology. If you want to understand why a fish behaves the way it does, you have to understand the water that it lives in. You see, a fish is designed for a specific environment. Its body, its system, its entire way of functioning has emerged over hundreds of thousands of years to match the particular demands of that water. If you put it in water that is the wrong temperature, the wrong chemistry, the wrong conditions, and the fish does not suddenly become a different fish. It just starts struggling in that environment that you have placed it under. As the same body, different environment, completely different outcome, all because the environment changed. We as humans are not so different. Our bodies, the skeletal system, the fascial system, the nervous system, the movement patterns we are capable of did not emerge in an office. They did not emerge sitting in a car for 45 minutes each day. They did not emerge in front of a screen for 8 hours at a time in a chair, parking our spine in a position that was never designed to hold it for hours at a time. They emerge from hundreds of thousands of years of varied, continuous, full range movements, squatting, carrying, climbing, walking through long distances on uneven terrains, changing positions constantly, and then using every joint every day without even thinking about it. That is the water we were designed for. And most of us are no longer swimming in it. Most of us are no longer swimming in, and really our environment has obviously changed with this modern day life. So peace, love, light, healing. I'm Nariah, the founder of Iron City Biomechanics, and we bridge the gap between healthcare and fitness. And this month we're talking about what I call modern human body problem. The growing mismatch between environments we actually live in and the environments our bodies were actually built for. And so today is week 1, and we're going to be, so we're starting from the beginning. So each week will look a little different. Here is what most people do not fully understand about the human body. It is not a static structure. It is a dynamic, adaptive system, one that requires movement to maintain its integrity, not occasional movement, not one workout a week, but varied, regular, full range movement woven into the fabric of daily life. And so every system depends on that. And so the fascia, which I've talked about before, which is a connective tissue web that runs through the entirety of the body and it communicates to the muscles. It requires movement to stay hydrated and responsive. If we hold it in the same position for long periods of time, it begins to adapt. It thickens, it shortens along the lines that the posture that it's been held in most often. And so it keeps things from gliding and we start bracing. And once the fascia starts bracing, the muscles follow, not the other way around. The fascia leads. All right. And so then the joints, joint stress, the joints require movement through their nutrition. Movement is their nutrition, I should say. And so a joint that is not moving through its full range of motion is a joint that is slowly being starved. And then the nervous system. The nervous system builds its map of the body through movement. When movement is restricted, when joints are held in narrow ranges and patterns start to become repetitive, then the nervous system's picture of what the body can do starts to shrink. And a nervous system that's working from a shrinking map becomes more protective, more cautious, more likely to treat ordinary demands as threats. So none of this has to do with aging. All of it has to do with environment. And so I want to be specific because this mismatch shows up in predictable ways. And I want you to hear these and think of your own daily life. So I want to run through a list that I see often. So number one is prolonged sitting. The human hip was designed to move through a wide range of motion. Sitting holds it in one fixed position, that's hip flexion, for hours at a time, I might add. And so the hip flexors start to shorten. The glutes, which are designed to be among probably the most powerful structure in the body, becomes inhibited and underactive. And so the fascia along the front of the hip starts to thicken and contract. And then the lower back no longer has support the way it should because now it starts to compensate. And so 1 hour of sitting is not the problem. What it is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 24 years. That is the environment now that you have taught your body to adapt to. So number two, screen-based work. Or I see a lot of tech neck, what I call tech neck when people come in here to see me. So the average adult head weighs about 10 to 12 pounds in a neutral position. So for every inch that the head moves forward of that neutral, which is what looking at a desk screen tends to produce, the effective load of the neck and the upper spine roughly doubles. At just 2 or 3 inches of a forward head position, the upper back now is managing the equivalent of 20 to 30 pounds of extra load all day, every day. And so the fascia and the tissues up there, they start to respond that way any structure under stress would. And and so that's when we start to brace. These areas start to thicken, they start to hold together. And then people wonder why their neck is always tight or why they're getting headaches all the time. So, number three, flat uniform surfaces, excuse me. And so the human foot has 26 bones, 33 joints, over hundreds of tendons and ligaments, and it is extraordinary complex design. And we were designed to navigate through multiple planes of motion so that we can continue to improve our proprioception, and which ultimately improves our nervous system. And so most modern adults spend almost all of their time on flat, uniform surfaces and shoes that dampen the foot's sensory input. And so the result of that is a foot and ankle system that has become underused and under-responsive, and a nervous system that has lost some of the richest real-time information about where the body is in space. So if you have balance issues, that's why. So number four is the disappearance of floor-based living. Getting up and down from the floor in all its various forms is one of the most demanding and beneficial movement patterns that the human body performs. And so it requires hip mobility, ankle mobility, spinal flexibility, and full body coordination. In environments our bodies evolved in, this happened dozens of times a day. In most modern Western lives, it's almost, we almost, people never do it. And the ranges of motion it requires have quietly disappeared in a huge portion of the adult population, on probably over 40, the age of 40. And so most of what people in their 50s, and 60s attribute to aging, the stiff hips, the tight back, the forward shoulders, the reduced balance, the loss of movement confidence, is more accurately attributed to decades of environmental mismatch. Not aging, but mismatch. This distinction matters more than almost anything else I say in this conversation because it changes what is possible for those individuals. If these things are the result of aging, they are largely outside of your control. You manage them, you accommodate them, you accept them as the price of time. But if they are the result of an environmental mismatch, which the evidence strongly suggests that they largely are, they are addressable. Not fully reversible in every case. Don't get me wrong, but not without real work. Those things can be addressed. They can change. They can improve in ways that matter significantly for how you feel and function every single day. The body adapted to the modern environment over years and decades. It can adapt back or towards something better, even with the right, just as long as you have the right inputs, I may add, as long as you have the right inputs. This is not about, let me say, this is not about rejecting modern life. I'm not telling you to quit your job and throw your desk away or go live in the woods foraging for berries and stuff like that. What I am saying is that the inputs that the body was designed to receive need to be reinforced intentionally, regularly, and specifically, alongside whatever the modern environment provides. And so it means moving through ranges of motion that the body was designed for but no longer visits. Um, Visiting full hip extension, deep hip flexion, rotation of your spine, overhead reaching movements that require your shoulder to do its thing, doing a lot of floor-based transitions. It means varied movement that challenges your balance, your coordination, and proprioception. And so the kind of variety that uneven terrain and three-dimensional daily life used to provide automatically and no longer does. It means working with the fascia directly because the fascia has encoded years of postural adaptation. And until the fascial network changes, the muscle it signals will keep producing the same patterns. So, stretching individual muscles is not enough. The communication network has to change. And it means understanding that this cannot be addressed in one good workout per week or 3 workouts a week. The environment exposure is a daily thing. The response needs to be regular and built into the way that you move through your actual life, not just what happens in the gym. And so the fish in the wrong water does not need more willpower. It does not need to try harder. It needs the right environment or at least enough of the right inputs to compensate for the wrong one. And so your body is not failing you guys. It is responding accurately and intelligently to the environment it has been living in. The question, I believe, is not what is wrong with your body. The question is, what has your environment been asking of it, and what has been missing from the conversation for a very long time? And so this is the conversations we have at Iron City Biomechanics every single day. This is what we talk about. This is what I teach and impress upon my clients. If you heard yourself in any of the 4 patterns that I mentioned above, the hips, the neck, the balance, the issues getting up and down off of the floor, or if you've been quietly accepting the way that your body feels, that just that this is just the way things are now, I want to invite you to take one step. Schedule a movement diagnosis with one of our fitness practitioners at Iron City Biomechanics. We look at how your body is actually moving, where the environmental mismatch has left its mark, and what a smarter, more intentional path forward looks like for you specifically. Not a generic plan, not more of what hasn't worked, but a real assessment of what is actually going on and a strategy that's built around addressing the cause, not just managing the symptoms. And so the link is in the bio. We are, right here in Vestavia Hills, Alabama, and we work with men and women who ready to stop accepting the way that their body feels as inevitable and start understanding what is actually driving it. Again, I'm Naraya. Thanks for watching. Peace, love, light, and healing, and I'll see you whenever I'm looking at you.